Gothic architecture is an architectural style that flourished in Europe during the High and Late Middle Ages. It evolved from Romanesque architecture and was succeeded by Renaissance. Here you can see the characteristics of Gothic architecture. The introduction of the pointed arch allowed for the stress lines to go vertically instead of horizontally, creating endless possibilities for new heights and dimensions. The groin vaulting, which is used in the Romanesque period, allowed for the stress planes to be received at several points, rather than the two main planes on either side. The Gothic period introduced ribbed vaulting, which essentially makes a web, allowing for a lighter and more even separation of stress. Since the walls no longer needed to be so thick, they could be replaced with luminous stained glass. The outward pressure on the walls was minimised, and the introduction of the flying buttress meant that support was offered externally to the building. This external skeleton allowed for new heights and an influx of light into the space. Forget the association of the word Gothic to dark, haunted houses and white makeup with black clothes. The original Gothic style was actually developed to bring light into people's lives, and especially into their children. The Goths were a so-called barbaric tribe who held power in various reigns of Europe, between the collapse of the Roman Empire and the establishment of the Holy Roman Empire. During this period, they were not renowned for great achievements in architecture. As with many art historical terms, Gothic came to be applied to a certain architectural style after the fact. The style represented giant steps away from previous and relatively basic buildings. The Gothic grew out of the Romanesque architectural style, offering architects and masons the chance to work out ever more complex and daring designs. The change into this Gothic period can be drawn back to one main motive: monasticism. Each reign of Western Europe had its own strict religious order. These orders typically had specific architectural preference and influences that were strongly followed. Different parts of Western Europe followed strict guidelines for religion, therefore how their religious areas must look. The Romanesque period followed simplicity, claiming that decoration, in addition to artwork, would distract from the religious purpose of a cathedral, whereas the Cluniac order served as the basis of Gothic architecture. Followers believed that windows and light would help transport the viewer from a state of material to immaterial, since all the focus was on the light and the light came from God.
Like no other church. The architecture is Gothic, which was all the rage in the 1200s. Gothic architects create a skeleton of support with columns, pointed arches, and buttresses, so that the walls no longer need to support the heavy stone ceiling, but are freed up to hold windows. Chartres is most famous for its stained glass and statues. It's like a picture book of the entire Christian story told through its art. In the Book of Chartres, as some nicknamed the church.
While the Romanesque period saw peace and return to Europe after several centuries of war and poverty, communities began to replace their small wooden chapels with large stone churches. These builders looked to the structures of ancient Rome for guidance and inspiration. Example 1 of pre-Gothic is Santa Foy Cathedral, 1050 to 1120. As you can see in these images, it follows key ideas of Gothic-style architecture, including the pointed arch, ribbed vaulting, sculpture integrated with structure. Another example is the Cologne Cathedral. It is a high Gothic aisle basilica. It is a phenomenal example of Gothic architecture, exhibiting all characteristics. Here we can see St. Stephen's Cathedral, where most of Vienna's art treasures lie. Its Gothic style is apparent in its red marble and its Gothic wing altar that was completed in 1447. Remarkable for its ground plan and slender cross ribbed arches within 3 apses with narrow windows, Zagreb Cathedral is considered as the most impressive and monumental Gothic-style sacral building in the southeast of the Alps. Its features reflect the introduction of the Gothic style to Croatia, as well as the internationalisation of art.
La Mustafa Pasha Mosque is a classic example of the French Gothic architectural style, not just in Cyprus but in the Mediterranean works. This mosque took almost a century to complete. Its Gothic architecture resembles the Great Cathedral of Reims in Paris, France. Known as the largest and most important cathedral in Prague, Czech Republic, its neo-Gothic part is best revealed in its main nave and narrow side aisles. The Market Hall project started in 2012 and carries many fundamental designs of the Gothic period, such as the use of pointed arches and flooded light. The market hall is made by wooden ceilings and small windows that bring the light inwards, which causes a glass-like envelope that protects the wood. The market hall Giat by Marie Jos van He and Roepegen en Dam, Ghent, Belgium, is a great example of Gothic architecture in today's society. The renewal of the Stedelijk Museum Hof van Boesleiden started in 2013 in Mechelen, Belgium. It replicates the late Gothic style and consists of 3 spaces and has kept the cultural heritage of the building. Zek Architects renovated Drent's archive in 2011 with the idea of connecting the present and future visitors with the past visitors, with Gothic style ceilings into a more modern style, such as glass cubes for rooms. An example of Gothic art pieces is a picture narrative used in the St. George Church. It depicts the celebration of a Clunic monk at supper. A more modern example would be Gerald Nickerson's digital art, which shows a complex design that is still flooded with light through the use of structural elements. Our analysis. After researching thoroughly and learning intimately about Gothic period architecture, we believe that its success is attributed by the many structures that still stand today, hundreds of years after their construction. Many key structural elements, such as the pointed arches and ribbed vaults, are still seen as icons and produced in large scales today, showcasing the relevance to contemporary design and culture.